And that is why the work that you do at FAN is so important. You know what we're fighting for. And you bring that moral authority to say to all of us in temples and synagogues and churches and mosques, as well as to those who have no spiritual house of worship, but are deeply spiritual, that we must be present to suffering. We must be present to the suffering that is around us. And we must be fueled by the hope, by the commitment, by the ability to put everything that we have on the line for justice for all of us. So let me end with a poem that has given me a lot of solace in the last many months, a poem from the great Sufi master Rumi. The way is full of genuine sacrifice. The thickets blocking the path are anything that keeps you from that. Any fear that you may be broken to bits like a glass bottle. The road demands courage and stamina, and yet it's full of footprints. Who are these companions? They are rungs in your ladder. Use them. With company, you quicken your ascent. You may be happy enough going along, but with others, you'll get further and faster. Every prophet sought out companions. A wall standing alone is useless, but put 3 or 4 walls together, and they'll support a roof and keep the grain dry and safe. When ink joins with pen, then the blank paper can say something. Rushes and reeds must be woven to be useful as a mat. If they weren't interlaced, the wind would blow them away. So to you, the Faith Action Network, thank you for being those strands that weave us together. Thank you for your strength in blowing forth the winds of change from ripples to waves. And thank you for your moral certitude in difficult times. We will win. Thank you all so much.
Thank you, Congresswoman Jayapal, for your inspiring words.
Pramila for president.
My introduction of our next speaker, I'm afraid, is not going to be nearly as inspiring as Sister Anila's introduction of the Congresswoman. Nevertheless, I am thrilled to introduce this man who needs no introduction. And I expect many of you, like me, if you're honest, love this man. Rick Steves, beloved author of European travel books and host of the long-running PBS television series, and now an increasing number of sort of special video productions, has been a major supporter of FAN since its beginning in 2011 and a regular attender at our dinners. He believes that travel becomes a political act only if you do something with your broadened perspective. And we are grateful that his travel discoveries have led him into real action here at home in the state where he lives. And tonight he is here to help create ripples of change by supporting FAN's mission. Rick lives and works in his hometown of Edmonds and is a member of Trinity Lutheran Church in Linwood. Welcome again, Rick Steves. We're so glad you're with us.
Thank you very much. Wow, I'm really thankful to be represented by somebody with the name Pramila Jayapal, but I don't relish the idea of following that inspirational speech. That was, actually I do. That just fired me up, and it's just so great to be here. Every time I get an opportunity to come to this event, I just love to have a room full of people who really get what citizenship is all about, what FAN is all about. There's some secondary advantage of us getting together beyond all the money we're going to raise tonight. It just inspires us to know that we're in this together. I love the idea of diversity and unity, and I was thinking about that. And for me, this is a great opportunity to celebrate diversity and unity. And I love to draw on my travel experience to kind of learn the importance of some of these things. It reminds me of a time I was in eastern Turkey with one of our groups, and we were in a little town that I think had never seen Americans actually visit. And the mayor was all excited that there was a group of Americans there, and he took us over to his house, and we were all dancing, and I was the tour guide, so I was the big shot, and he was the big shot, and we're all dancing, and he comes over to me, and he takes me over to a place in his house, which is the most holy place in his house. It's where he hangs his Quran bag. And Muslims apparently in Turkey have this beautiful spot where they have a very sacred bag where they put their holy scriptures. And he said, in my Quran bag, I also have a copy of the Torah and the Bible. Because he said we're all children of the book, people of the book, children of the same God. And I just loved that notion. I treasure those ideas, and I wish a lot of my friends that are more frightened than open to the world could have a chance to dance with a Muslim mayor in a far corner of this world and celebrate that we're all on the same team. We're all children of God. We all believe in this beautiful idea of love your neighbor. What's so tough about that? We can learn a lot about our country by leaving it. I love to look at my country from afar. I was just in Ethiopia and Guatemala in the last 2 weeks, preparing for a TV show I'm going to do about the structure of poverty and why there's hunger in such an affluent world. And I was in Guatemala last week on my first helicopter ride ever. And it was pretty exciting to go on a helicopter. And my pilot told me that Guatemala has the greatest reliance on helicopters per capita of any country in our hemisphere. And I had just learned that Guatemala also has the lowest tax rate of any country in our hemisphere. 10% of their GDP is taxation. Honduras, right next door, 20% of their GDP is raised in taxation. The United States, we're something above 30%, and Europe is something above 40% of their GDP. It's a societal choice, isn't it? If you like small government and if you like no taxation, go to Guatemala. You'll see what it's like. You'll see what it's like. Looking out that helicopter window, there's almost no infrastructure. There's only one good road in the country, and that goes to the port. So the guys who own the big plantations can export their stuff and be part of that oligarchy, the 8 families that own most of the arable land in that country. Of course, when you're an elite, you don't need infrastructure. You just hop on a helicopter. It's a fascinating thing to think this discussion we have in our world about taxation, about public wealth, about taking care of our neighbors. Taking care of our neighbors. When I look at the United States from a distance, it's clear to me the health of our society is threatened by our shrinking middle class. And if you don't understand that, go to a society that has no middle class. Go to a country that's even tougher off than us and see what it's like. If you're in a country with no middle class, Guatemala, El Salvador, Nicaragua, there's an armed guard in front of every pharmacy. There's an armed guard in front of every bank. There's an armed guard in front of every hotel. Neighborhoods with a little money, struggling middle-class neighborhoods, pool their resources so their kids can go to the park because there's an armed guard in the corner. If we don't do something about the struggling middle class in our society, we're going to have armed guards in banks, armed guards at schools, and armed guards at pharmacies. That's not the mark of a successful society. You could be the richest society on earth overall, but if you've got that big of a gap between rich and poor, it's not the mark of a successful society. We understand that. Now, we've all been in the trenches working on social and economic and racial justice and so on, and I think there is a reality in America. We're capitalists. We've got to relate to people, embracing this sort of capitalist religion of ours, but we have to decide, how are we going to be capitalists? And the political discussion in our society seems to be, do you want unbridled capitalism, or do you want capitalism that is working with parameters that are right for our society, parameters that are sustainable, parameters that are good for the future? That's the difference. I've studied Europe and America for a long time, and I've been fascinated by the differences between our two affluent, pluralistic, mostly Christian, very wealthy societies. What is the difference? Here in the United States, I think we are government by, for, and of the people via the corporations that we own. In Europe, it's government by, for, and of the people in spite of the short-term financial interest of the corporations that they own. There's a big difference there. You got to have corporations, you got to have a booming economy, but do you want unbridled capitalism? That's the question. If you want to look at unbridled capitalism, go to a country where the government is in cahoots with the oligarchy and see what it's like. In a place like Guatemala, it's the free market. That's our religion for a lot of Americans, the free market. If you really subscribe to the invisible hand of the marketplace to sort everything out for you,